Have you ever wanted more control over your Stable Diffusion image generation? Or maybe you know someone who likes to scribble and you want to turn those scribbles into stunning images for them? Well, welcome to ControlNet, all within the Automatic1111 web UI to make your image alterations powerfully controlled. The original GitHub repo came out just a few days ago, and as we can see in here, there is a link to the paper as well. It's chock full of examples and technical information, so do take a look in there if you're into all the nitty-gritty, nerdy details. However, what I'm going to be showing you today instead is this super easy to install extension, because who doesn't love an Automatic1111 extension? The first thing to do is install the extension. This is pretty easy. Just go to Extensions, Install from URL, paste the URL in there. I've got it already installed, so I won't click install, but you click install, that will install it. It will then create a whole load of directories in here, so you'll get extensions, SD Web UI, ControlNet, and you'll also get this models directory. This is where you're going to need to download those models too. So there's a bunch of models there. They're all 723 meg in size, so okay, but certainly a lot smaller than the original repo. Just click on one of those, click download, and then save it into that extensions SD Web UI ControlNet models directory. As you can see, I have already downloaded them all there. But wait a second, I can hear you cry. The original GitHub repo has files that are 5.7 gig each. These are only 723 meg. Why are they smaller? Does this make any difference? Don't I need the larger files for better quality? Well, let's have a look, shall we? Let's have a look. Here is a quick image I've done with the 3 different versions. So the first row is the full 5.7 gig file. The middle row is a 1.4 gig FP32 ControlNet model, and the bottom row is this FP16 ControlNet model. As you can see, well, it's up to you, but take a look, and if you can't see any difference at all, then do download the 723 meg files, because if you get all 8 of those, then that's about the same size as one of those 5.7 gig files. Or as another comparison, if you download all the full-size models, then you'll need at least 45 gig of disk space. You may also notice that you don't need very many steps with ControlNet. Yes, it does get better with more steps, but here you can see at just around 6 to 8, it's already starting to look pretty good. Now that you've installed the extension and downloaded the models, if you go back to Automatic1111 and to the extensions installed and click Apply and Restart UI, then you should be ready to go. I didn't have to do this myself, but the GitHub repo does mention that you may need to install some extra packages. So if you're seeing errors regarding CV2, then you may need to install that. Here, it's very easy. We'll pop over there, paste, pip install OpenCV Python. I already have it installed, of course, into my Stable Diffusion 2 Anaconda environment, and I'm good to go. Hopefully you'll now see a ControlNet option available in both text to image and image to image. Here it is down the bottom. If you click on that, it expands, and you can see you have loads of different options there. One thing to note is that ControlNet doesn't yet work with Stable Diffusion 2. So in your model checkpoints up here, Stable Diffusion checkpoint, you will need to select a Stable Diffusion 1 family checkpoint, otherwise it won't work. You should also note that the extension is still marked as a work in progress, so do expect things to change at any point in the future. More than likely minutes right after this video has come out, if past performance is anything to go by. Another thing I found during my testing was I'd get slightly different output depending on whether I use the text to image or image to image tab. Let me just show you what I mean here. Right, so I'm using a fairly basic setup. I'm using very simple prompts here, so it makes it a lot easier for anyone to understand exactly what's going on. So I've just got a base prompt of photo of a woman, very minimum number of steps there, the Euler sampler 768 by 768, and down in the ControlNet area, I've got it enabled. I'm using Canny. I'm also using Canny for the model there, a weight of 1. All these are defaults, scale to fit 768 and 768. So when I create one of those, then it looks great. I've got the output, so there's the sketch that it made, and there's the resulting image. But when I do exactly the same thing over in image to image, here again, I'm making sure to use all the same settings, guidance scale of 7, the same seed, and all these same settings down here. However, when I do generate on this one, then although I get the same sketch image, the output image is very different. So there's the image to image. We'll just go back to the text to image one. So there you can see it's got different coloring. So it's very similar image, but it is different. So not quite sure what's going on there. Perhaps something to do with the denoising strength. Oh, and these temporary files at the moment will go into your temp directory, so for me, /tmp, just in case you want to use them later, which reminds me, if you don't want that image at all, then you can change that in the settings. If you go over to settings and then down to ControlNet, you've got a bunch of options there for the directories. So if you tick this one here, do not append detect map to output, and click apply, then you won't get that detect map anymore. There's another option there, apply transfer control when loading models. It didn't seem to make any difference for me, not entirely sure what it does. It's marked on the GitHub repo as experimental, so your mileage may vary with that. Another thing I found was that in this image to image tab, I didn't need to necessarily drag an image into the ControlNet area down the bottom there, as if I had an image up the top, it would get exactly the same result anyway. However, if you do drag an image down there, it will take precedence over the one up there. And you can't have that one empty, because if it's empty in image to image, it says, no, I can't do that. There are some other slight differences between the two tabs as well. Obviously, text to image has the high-res fix option there, which sort of works as long as you use the same resolutions as it's got up there. So in the high-res fix, you can of course scale however you want and produce any output, but if you produce something that isn't one of these standard sizes, then it will error. And in comparison to that, obviously in the image to image area, you do have a denoising strength, which you don't have in the text to image without that high-res fix. And the denoising strength does have quite an impact on the image. If we have a quick look at this XY grid I created earlier, the top row is with ControlNet enabled and the bottom row is just normal image to image. As you can see, there is very little change between the two with low denoising strength, but once you start to get above 0.9, it is quite different. For this reason, I tend to leave denoising at about 1 for ControlNet. Sometimes I go down to 0.99, but mostly I leave the denoising strength at 1. Alright, now you've learnt about most of the nuances, let's take a look at what all these different models do. Over on page 8 of the paper, they explain each of them in great detail, but on the GitHub repository page, we can also see a nice summary of the models. Basically, we've got some edge detection there and lines, lots of nice variants there, head boundaries, stuff like that. We've also got Scribble Synthesis, so you can make things from your scribbles there, some very nice little animals and little hot air balloons as well, very cool looking. If we scroll further down, we've got some more sketches there and outlines, but we've also got poses, so you can do all the different poses there, segmentation maps, and also further down we've got depth as well, which we've seen before, but it's nice to have it in this model as well, and some normal maps as well, lots and lots of different features. Personally, my favourite ones are the Scribble Synthesis, the pose detection, and the segmentation, as you can have so much fun with just these three alone. Starting with scribbles, because these are my level of hand-drawn art, and while the canvas is very tiny, you can do this without any other drawing programs. Just click the Create Blank Canvas, shrink the brush a bit, and draw your thing. So there I am, Create Blank Canvas. Got a big brush to start with. We'll make it a little bit smaller, and then let's draw a thing. That looks pretty good, doesn't it? Now, I'll select the preprocessor. Here, I'm going to go with a Scribble, and also I select the same model as well, Scribble 2. Now, you can mix and match these, but generally speaking, pick the same one. So if you've got Scribble preprocessor, pick the Scribble model as well. These annotators and thresholds will change depending on the preprocessor that you pick. So if I pick normal map, for example, you get different options there. So let's just go back to Scribble. For the most part, I just leave these on the default, but do feel free to play with those as you like. I'm matching the canvas height and width here, so 768 by 768, also the same up the top there. This one at the top actually controls the final output image size. If I put a really amazing prompt in there, painting of a monster from outer space, and generate, whoa, okay, that is a very scary monster from outer space. You might also have noticed that we have a weight down here as well, so if I put that all the way up to 2, then it will match that image even more. I just do a quick generate there. And as you can see, it hasn't been as creative and it more closely matches that original sketch image. The pose estimation has a couple of different preprocessors. If we have a look down here, we can see we've got open pose and open pose hand. Now they are very similar, apart from the open pose hand one will add some extra hands on it. Will it fix hands? Not so much. That's more down to limitations of the model, unfortunately. Still, as you can see, it's a great way to duplicate any pose. So there is the pose estimation that it's done, and there is the image that it has generated. If we have a quick look at that, you see there's no hands on there, but if I switch over here to the open pose hand model and regenerate again, then the model suddenly has hands on, and the image, well, there you go. It's very similar, and the hands are still a bit, never mind. Looking at these segmentation maps, we can see these are a little bit like paint by color. There's the segmentation map there. It's got all the different colors, and there is the image it generates. Obviously, that is the original over there. Overall, the performance seemed to be exactly the same to me as did VRAM usage, meaning that if you can run Stable Diffusion now, then you should be able to run this extension too. And I didn't even have the low VRAM option ticked. As you can see down there, low VRAM. So if you have got a very low end card, that may be the option for you. I'd say this is a pretty amazing addition to the Automatic 1111 web UI and can really help you control your output in a wide variety of ways. I would highly recommend downloading it today and to start creating. Plus, if you'd like to learn about some more Stable Diffusion fun, then do click on this video.